I am going to go ahead and pass it over to you all to introduce yourself. Briefly, if you can introduce your name, what you do, what's your business, why are you here?
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Vince. I'm the CFO at AFC Trading and Wholesale. What we do is we are a manufacturer, distributor of soy products. So if you've had some of the soy pudding tonight, or some of the soy sheet salads, or mapo tofu anywhere across the 626, it's probably ours. So our products are distributed in 99 Ranch, Beach Mart, 168 across many Asian grocery retailers. And that's a little bit about our company. This is our 50th year as a company. So I'm a second generation business owner. My parents are still very much involved. and it's hard for them to let go.
Hi everyone, good volume? Okay. My name is Heidi and I'm the co-founder of Root & Fair. We make Chinese American spreads and nut butters inspired by traditional Chinese flavors. I started the company because I felt there was a gap between kind of living with my Chinese heritage but feeling too busy to participate in it. And I felt that the food scene was the same way. And so I did this thing where I combined something that was very Chinese, like black sesame, and something very American, like peanut butter, and made a spread that you put on everything. So we are distributed mostly by ourselves, so you can find us at rootandfair.com. A lot of amazing bodegas and stores like Yokoseo in Little Tokyo is a walking distance from here. And I'm here today because mental health has been something that like an important point for me going into college, and it actually was the reason why I started my business. It was a way for me to take control of my mental health and to participate in my culture more. So really excited to be here and to share time with you all.
Hi, my name is Linda Yoon. I am the founder of Yellow Shirt Collective. Susan and I are business partners. I'm here because we are co-hosting, but also I do love food a lot. And there is a lot of food identity. I feel like we got lost when I immigrated to myself from South Korea when I was about 11. And I grew up more predominantly white neighborhood where finding good Korean food was really hard. Finding good any Asian food was really hard. And another thing about us, Susan and I, we wrote a co-author, Where I Belong, Healing Trauma and Embracing Asian American Identity, that came out last year. And we have several chapters actually talk a lot about food, because when we talk to other Asians or other immigrants, a lot of times we connect through food, stories through food, and as we're collecting stories of how they came to reconcile their identity as Asian Americans and their heritage, even we didn't prompt it, a lot of people connected through food and they will share food. And unintentionally, a lot of stories in our book became about food as well. So we can, this is really fitting that people do identify and heal through food. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation around that.
Amazing. Okay. Can you all hear us from the back? Yeah? If you can't, then come sit over here. Like this whole right in front of us is empty. Yeah. Come on over. Come sit here. Okay. And then I can also pass this mic around because I think that mic is a little bit lower than this. Okay, yes. Thank you. Yeah. So if you're in the back and you were saying you couldn't hear, then come on over. Okay. Amazing. Okay. So here's an icebreaker question to get started, to get to know these folks. If you can introduce one dish to the world that represents you, like this dish is me, what food item would that be to you? Vince, you want to go first?
Okay.
Can't be tofu.
Fair enough.
Hello? Oh wow, so much better.
My go-to dish would be, if y'all speak Cantonese, it's one chao hao. It's basically flattened rice noodles, soy sauce, slices of beef, onion, green onion, and that's it. Very simple. But why? That was probably my first meal coming out of the womb, and it's probably going to be my last meal on my deathbed. It's because I love it so much. I could eat a full meal of it like without a blink of an eye. I think it represents me. Well, my dad always jokes. It's soy sauce, so that's why I'm so much more tan than my brother. And it's because I eat so much soy sauce, I'm a little bit more browner. But I just love the dish. My parents, I love the dish. I could cook it easily. It's bold in flavor. It's versatile. You could add chili oil. You could add so many other savory things to it. But I've probably had more than 1,000 dishes of that in my life. So, yeah.
So just to ask, I can't pick my own products. That would have been perfect, but I think mine would be, I think it's called Chinese borscht. It's this like tomato stew. Okay. ABC soup?
Yeah.
Interesting. Like American born Chinese.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Wow. Makes so much sense. That is my favorite dish that my mom makes for me. And for the longest time, I feel like this represents me because I didn't think that deeply about food when I was younger. My mom was this amazing home cook. She gave up her career to raise me. And I just, got to eat amazing food, but never had to think much about it. And it wasn't until I went off to college and didn't have access to these foods, I found that was what I missed most, was this, delicious tomato beef stew, had potatoes and onions. And so I asked my mom more about it, like how can I make it in college when I don't have any Asian groceries around me? And she later told me that it's not Chinese at all. She actually learned it from my grandmother on my dad's side, who was in Dalian, if you're familiar, it's in China. And it was actually occupied by Japanese and also by Russians. So my grandma knew Russian, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. So she learned it from the soldiers that were there. But I think, she taught it to my mom, and my mom made it her own, and then I've gotten to enjoy it. So I feel that it very much represents the experience of immigrating, of being in a community that is such a melting pot. I think we all have become who we are because of who we're around and who we're with.
Sweet. Are you answering questions?
Yes. Here. So I asked Sujin, I'm like, okay, she wrote the question. So I'm like, what food? It's hard to pick one food and to describe me. So and Sujin just like, without hesitation said tteokbokki, which is the spicy rice cake, Korean. Because whenever when we're first hanging out together, I will always say, can we get tteokbokki? Like every time we meet, and she will be like, well, this is the second time we're meeting this week, and then you want tteokbokki for the second time. I'm like, yeah, and I had tteokbokki yesterday. So it was in my 20s. I had a stronger stomach, and then it's spicy food that I really love. That was a food that I missed the most because in Korea it's a street food. So you go around and you see a street vendor. I can get it all the time. It was a food that I will have after school. It was really cheap. You can get a scoop of it for I think equivalent to 10 cents back in the days.
Wow.
So it was a food that comforted me after school or going, just walking the street and just finding it. So having that not available when I moved to America, and it was like a super suburban place that you don't really get to walk around anymore. There's no street food. That was my number one craving all the time. So when I became adult and had access to it, I just had it all the time. Later I learned how to make it too, but I just love trying different tteokbokki, and it's sometimes not the best because I want to get tteokbokki anywhere I travel to. And then sometimes I get disappointed because it's just
one time I was in Tokyo and I'm like, I'm gonna get tteokbokki, and I'm like, why did I do that?
Why did you do that?
Why did I do that? So I think it describes me because I love it. I unfortunately cannot eat it as much because my doctor told me I cannot have more spicy food anymore. Have to be moderate. So I think it describes like sweet and mildly spicy. That's how I would describe.
Thank you so much. I was thinking about this too on my own, and just now actually, because I wasn't thinking about answering the question, but as I was listening to you all, I was like, what kind of food represents me? And the thing that came to my mind was just white, plain noodles. And the reason for that is because I feel like I am really good at like adjusting myself to different situations. And I think white plain noodles can do that. Like I can put any kind of sauce, sweet, spicy, sour, whatever, right? And it will still taste good. And so the environment that I'm put into, I just soak it up and adjust really well. So I would say white noodles, just plain noodles for me. I'm a plain person until you give me some atmosphere, and then I can get spicy. I can get sweet, you know? So I think that's me. That's me. Yeah, adaptable. There we go, adaptable. All right, so on to the next question. What are some misconceptions people may have about the food that is tied to your heritage? Is there any misconceptions? Because the reason why I'm asking this is you all are storytellers. The way that you all sell your products, our services, is through storytelling, which means that you have to come up with stories that is accessible for people that may or may not know about these products, right? So then you will have encountered some misconceptions about Asian food or about the food that you might be selling or the stories that we're telling, right? Especially about mental health too, Linda. So then I'm wondering, what are some of the misconceptions that people may have? And then how do you frame these stories? Like how do you work on your storytelling essentially to sell these things? Is this hard? Yeah, do you want to go?
Sure. My heritage basically revolves around the soybean, and not my dad's story, but more so of me storytelling my product. I used to live in Chicago for about 9 years, and a lot of Midwesterners don't know what tofu is. So when I was living there, told them like, hey, this is what I grew up with as a kid. Their first reactions are, ew, tofu. Most people are thinking, oh, because they're used to more meat and potatoes kind of a cuisine, right? It's corn, it's steaks, it's of that kind of dish. How I was able to kind of storytell my idea was I actually did some research in college. I wrote like a 20-page paper about the soybean. As boring as that sounds, actually a lot of the misconceptions were portrayed by the media in the 90s. But so you have to frame your story based on the audience. If they're more persuaded with facts and logic versus if they're more inspired by influenced by surroundings and their other social ecosystems. So based on the audience, I kind of had to realize, okay, I couldn't just tell them from a family heritage side. I had to come up with facts, statistics, media spend back in the 90s, in the 2000s, when soy milk started arising as an alternative to regular milk. And then soy was more used as a meat alternative. But if you really think about it, soy has been consumed for thousands of years by ancient history in Asia. So I've had to do a lot more research, which prompted me to do such. And I was able to convey my story even to the current day of how people still consume this versatile product, whether it's in sheets or in tofu scramblers or in noodles or any kind of form. I think some of the misconceptions is part of our mission to spread our purpose. trying to educate people, trying to inform them about, hey, there's other worlds out there than what you know. Whether they believe it or not, that's their hemisphere now. And what we can do, we can't control and change everybody's mindsets. What we can do is fulfill ourselves and our mission to do what we can do, and it's for the other half to meet us there. So it's always an education battle, especially for folks trying to spread information or their purpose in life.
Wow, that was really well said. It really resonated with what you said about having to do the work of fulfilling ourselves first before other people can meet us halfway. I think there is only so much that we can do in that department. For me, I think one of the biggest misconceptions, I think it is actually held by people of all different kinds of communities, which is that traditional things should stay the same, and that culture can only be done properly one way. And so what I mean by that is that, for Chinese New Year, like, oh, you have to wear red, you have to eat dumplings, you have to do these things. Like, these are traditions that have been passed down for millennia for a reason. It's a way for people to gather and have meaning. But it's also okay if you have curry on the table, if you have fries on the side. Like, I think that tradition is meant to live with us. And as stewards, we should make it feel like something that's ours. And for our product, like, we took one of the most traditional Chinese dishes, which was tangyuan. You guys have heard of it. It's like a mochi ball with black sesame filling that's in water, and you would have it for Chinese New Year to celebrate coming together. It's my favorite dessert growing up, and I didn't know what it was called, so I'd ask my mom for these little white balls that were in the fridge of 99 Ranch. She's like, okay, it's tangyuan, Heidi, learn the name. So I think that some might say it's blasphemous to like take something that has 1,000-year-old history, to take the filling, to make it into a spread. But I think it's an act of love, because now I can have it in all times of the day, anytime I want, in any way, instead of just having to have this dessert as a little white ball that I get from the fridge of the night fridge.
So for me, I'm an immigrant. So I immigrated when I was a child. And so I was like very few Asian in the suburb, predominantly white neighborhood school, and they will ask me like, I guess the only thing that a lot of kids actually didn't know at the time, like what Korea was, where Korea was, and if they knew, it was very few things like, do you like kimchi? Like, they're trying to connect to me with good intentions as a child, right? But I'm like, is that how I am defined by, like, kimchi now? Because that's the only thing we knew about, right? But I actually did not enjoy eating kimchi growing up, because in Korea, you have kimchi in every meal. So I did not enjoy it, because sometimes my parents, when I was younger, before we immigrated to America, there were hard times that they could only afford rice, like grain rice and kimchi. And I just hated it. It kind of got associated with like the hard, challenging time for me. And kind of also being a child and then being associated with like, oh, do you like kimchi? And that's all thing they knew about me. I think reinforced like I didn't hate kimchi, but I think I kind of like started to have a big reaction for people to like, to fight against that, right? Like, I hate kimchi. I didn't hate it, but I felt like that was the only identity they were trying to put me into, right? And also, I quickly realized the ethnic food back in the days, it was shown more like lesser than, right? It was not a cool thing where I grew up. The media didn't portray ethnic food as a cool thing. So even I like kimchi, and they connect to us. Like, how does it look? How do they see me? I think there are a lot of things that I was picking up as an immigrant, being a very few Korean kid in the school. So it took me a while to really learn about kimchi, actually. And that now is how interesting, right? It's a health food. People seek out, they ask for recipes. But it took me a long time to like, hey, I actually like kimchi. Like I had to take a break from kimchi, I think, not having it every meal with me, and coming to learn more history around like how kimchi was made, or why Korean people are proud of our kimchi products, and how to make it. Because every year my family gather, they will make this big kimchi. My grandma usually like to gather everybody and make 100 nappa cabbages, and then we will make kimchi for the whole winter. That's kind of tradition in Korea. So kind of going back to Korea once in a while, and then like being able to embrace that out of my identity, and actually we learning to like eating kimchi. That now when I go to Korea, I eat so much kimchi that my Korean family is like, you eat more kimchi than people in Korea. So how like funny it has changed. But I feel like it's not necessarily well, it was misconception. I feel like portraying media or just general public, and now how general public has changed more, and like I also have to change and be able to see and embrace that part of me too.
I feel like you all are already touching on the next question, which, all of your stories have an emotional attachment to food, right? And food already carries a lot of emotions for us. And so I am curious, like food carries, for me, I'm thinking about certain types of food represents a journey of grief. Certain types of food is just celebratory food. Sometimes those things are combined too. And so there's so many emotions that we are attached to food with. So I'm curious to explore a little bit deeper into that journey for you all. What are your experiences of expressing emotions through food? And I feel like you all have those stories because you're also doing business with food too.
I think the first deep cut that I've found within the business junk crossover with food was for my parents. And they were telling me when they first immigrated to LA, they brought a skill of making tofu. Back in the 70s, there was not many Asian people here. So they used tofu as a peace offering to assimilate into the city of Los Angeles. And back in the 70s, the cultural demographic was a big melting pot. Actually, just 2 miles away at Union Station is the junction between Mexico, the West Frontier, and then the immigrants brought from Asia to work on the railroads. So in the 70s, it was calamity, the perfect storm, and my parents brought their skill, which tofu traditionally is handmade and it's very laborious, but they used it as a peace offering to assimilate and to communicate with people who didn't speak Cantonese. Yes, they were Cantonese immigrants as well, but there were other settlers here. So when they told me that story, when I was 9 years old, I was thinking, man, well, looking back at it now, I could see how difficult it was for them, not knowing the language of English, but knowing a skill and just extending out your hand and with a plate of food or an offering. It's like going to a neighbor and like, oh, you're new to the community, like you bring like some cookies or something. So for me, that was a very heartfelt way of connecting with people. And it still is, because even to this day, we're talking about marketing or communication or actually like sales deals. And the message is still the same. It's still a peace offering. What can I serve you with, whether it's from a sales side or a marketing side or even an event like today? So that's my resonation with the food offering.
I was like tearing up kind of hearing your story about tteokbokki, because I feel like I felt a lot of shame around food too, or sadness in general of like not having it. And my first experience with that was, has anyone heard of Woodlands at all. It's actually in SoCal. It's near San Bernardino, and that's where I went to college. And I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, so 9 out of 10 people were Asian. But I went there, and I was one of 6 in the entire college. And I used to eat in the dining hall, and that was when I really felt othered for the first time in my life because they cooked rice all weird. I went to the dining hall, the rice was all really soggy or it was too hard and they served it weird. And I was like, this is such a staple. Like, how can you get rice wrong? So I think just like a staple like that, seeing it get messed up, I realized I was eating it, of course, because I just craved having rice. So I was happy to have something, but I was sad about how it was expressed. So I think there's a lot of my, the reasons why I came into creating Rooted Fair stemmed from that tension with happiness and grief and wanting something that could just be joyful and something that felt grounded. Just like how, farm to table, that whole movement, right? Like knowing where the cabbage comes from, knowing the farmer who made the chestnuts, it makes the whole experience of consuming the food so much better. And I think that that's also true with knowing the history of a dish, like the ABC noodle, which I didn't know that's what it's called. And then, even like banh mi's, like there's a whole history there. And if you know about it, it's like this history of colonization and occupation, but also of the joy of making do and finding joy from that. So I feel like knowing that makes me feel really grounded and it makes me feel gratitude. Another story that I have is I wanted to learn how to make dishes from my mom while she's still around, and I just love her food. And so recently I've taken an interest. Anytime I go home, I try to learn one dish from her. And one time I tried to make zongzi, and Dragon Boat Festival is coming around. She had all the rice done, she had the leaves ready for me in the sink, and she showed me how to do it. She said, Heidi, it's easy, but you'll need some practice. I said, yeah, I know what I'm doing, even though I had not really made lots of dishes at that point. I tried it a few times, the leaf ripped, the rice came out of the hole and it wouldn't, stay. And I remember feeling this intense shame. Sorry. And I guess I still do. I remember in the moment, I was asking myself, shouldn't I already know how to do this? As if, being born Chinese, I would know how to make zongzi or know how to make dumplings. But I felt like, as someone who was going to carry the tradition, I didn't have it. So at the time, I felt so terrible. I was letting my mom down. I was letting me down. But my mom she held me. And she said, it's going to take practice, just like riding a bike. It's going to be hard, but it'll be worth it. So every time I go, try to learn something new and just have patience with myself. So I think living in America, living in the West, and being told that you must become the same thank you, to belong is a total lie, and it's up to us to hold ourselves and to be kind and to do what we can and to do it with other people and to let our culture live on through us.
Sorry.
I just wanted to take a moment to just let that sink in. That was very, very powerful. Thank you. I think a lot of us resonate too. Just kind of like what is expected of us, and what really isn't sometimes. Right, growing up in different cultures, navigating the culture we might have grown up, what we look like, and the culture that we have in America, kind of expect us to assimilate, lose, right? So there's a lot of grief with that. So as mental health therapists, sometimes we talk about how food affects our mood, right? I think by now there has been a lot of research, a lot of talks around what we eat impacts our mood, and also our mood impacts what we want to eat, like cravings, right? And Koreans are known for spicy food. There's actually the tteokbokki, kimchi, they're all spicy. That's kind of where you grew up. And then you're weak in spicy, you're kind of like this joke, like, oh, you're not real Korean. And also, I heard this funny story how Japanese people who visit Korea from Japan, they will tell the fellow Japanese travelers, like, do not believe when Koreans say in the restaurant that it's not spicy. Like, if you ask, is it spicy? And they say no, like, do not believe it. It's always gotta be spicy. Because the tolerance level for spiciness for Koreans is just different. And it's kind of sad. I lost spicy tolerance level a lot as I've been in America longer and longer I'm here. I feel like I can tolerate spiciness less and less. For me, when I heard that question first time, I thought about my comfort food when I have like a busy, long day or like a stressful day. I always crave tteokbokki, as I mentioned earlier. And I have to kind of find my cravings these days. My doctor told me, like, stop eating spicy food all the time. But it's interesting how, like, when I'm having first thing I want is like the home food, right? That food that I grew up with, that I found comfort in, and I just, I think that really reflects like the emotions, right? Like when we were having what are you craving? What brings you comfort? So just wanted to with that.
Well, one last question for you all. So we're here to talk about food as our part of our identity and healing. And so what if there's very, very quick, simple advice that you can give to us all who are gathered here to try to heal a part of us through food? What advice would you have?
That one's a little tough. I try to not give into my cravings too much because this takes a lot of work. But anytime I feel down on myself, I like to go back to my home cooking. I go back to mom. Chicken ginseng soup. It's what you grew up with as a kid. I look back at it now, and I should learn her recipes more. She's the soup lady. 365 soups a year. And she's a common personality at the grocery store. But ways of healing is like kind of Heidi said, you kind of learn about certain traditions. You take ownership, you take responsibility in learning about something that you feel passionate about. And then you absorb it. And if you love it enough, you pass it on to your next generation. And I see a perfect example with my brother, and he's got his kids, my nephews, language. And it's not necessarily just with food, but it's also language. We live in America, which is predominantly English, but luckily we live here in LA where there's thousands of dialects spoken every day, but preserving the home language goes a long way with tradition. It goes the same parallels with food. And if you ever lost or feeling lost with your identity, it's always good to just have a fallback of your own comfort foods. And that's where I always fall back to. So those dishes I was talking to about earlier, it's still a common weekly lunch or dinner meal for me. And it just brings me back closer to my parents. I see them every day anyway. It's a little too much. But it does bring us closer, and it does heal some family bonds, brings us closer memories. There's constant dinner table talks, lunch table talks. And it just feels like a cohesive core when you resonate with something that your parents provided you as a kid, and it's still being consumed at the dinner table.
Love that. I feel like you said it all. The only thing I might want to add is to listen to the way that you want to heal and I guess like interact with food. I think some people are amazing chefs, right? Like they can take a traditional dish and they can make their own spin on it. You can also be someone who just like learns about the history, someone who learns about where the vegetables come from. I think if just lead with your curiosity, I think there's a reason why you're wondering. And I think that that curiosity will lead you to the answers that you need. And just, like what I was saying before, have patience and do the thing bad. I just now go into every situation expecting the worst, but not putting pressure on it. Just being like, okay, everything's gonna be and that's fine. And if it's not, it's great. And if it is, it's fine. So the same with, making a new dish or, even learning a friend's dish. I think there can be a lot of healing in just coming together and eating something that is made poorly, but is by your friend. And just having communion, having community. So I think just like find what resonates with you. You don't have to do it all.
So I brought this book because earlier we were mentioning it. So this book has a lot of collection of people's stories, how they work through their intergenerational, racial traumas, and etc. Like how to heal from traumas, right? This book is on Asian American traumas, and even though we're not looking for it, but people will tell me about like how did you find how to heal intergenerational trauma or intergenerational strength, and people will bring back to food, and we end up getting too many food stories because I realized after collecting so many stories about people's mental health journey and their identity that people heal through food, people connect through food. There is a big storytelling part of who we are that connects back to making food, learning about the ingredients we have, or sharing in communities. So a lot of family healing that we are end up collecting stories of is, 9 out of 10, I feel like they connected back through making food or learning about it or taking interest. Even when they're growing up, they didn't like it because it was considered ethnic food or lame, or they were bullied at school. But coming back to that and appreciating how their parents made sacrifice perhaps to help them stay connected, or the food they made for them, was beautiful stories. So I would like to just encourage, what is your food story in your family? Right? The food do get lost when we immigrate or migrate here. But how do you connect back to your identity or your family's stories and strength? Or sometimes we like to share stories around like families have a very difficult relationship sometimes, and then we will ask, is there at least moments that you get along, or be neutral at least, right? Sometimes that's where you need to start to heal families. And people mention like food. When we gather together, eat our food, then as long as it's good, right? That people are happy, and that moment is neutral, and sometimes healing even, right? So we love to encourage, what is my food story, and my family's food story, and then think about that.
Thank you so much. Could we give a round of applause to our guest speakers today, your panelists? Thank you so much for sharing so much of your stories and your lives with us. Thank you to each of you. Storytelling is so important. It's what makes us heal, what makes us seen, what keeps us going. And so food is just part of that story. So thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today. All right, we can accept questions from the audience as well. And so if you have any questions for them, please Raise your hand. Any questions about their lives, their social security number, their business? Yeah.
When it comes to mental health and self-improvement, and what is a book that you're currently reading or a podcast that you're currently listening to?
No one's reading right now.
I don't get a lot of time to read these days, so I'll just share one that I go back to whenever I feel like I'm like in a rut or just need some inspiration. It's actually a fiction novel. It's called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's about like Siddhartha or the Buddha's life and all of his trials and tribulations and how he ends up, approaching that. And every time I take something a little bit new from it, it's about letting go. It's about accepting what can't be changed and changing what you can. That's the one that I would pick.
The last mental health book I read, which was not long ago, maybe like last year, it was called The Road Back to You. I forgot the author, but it was a premise on the Enneagram, if y'all have studied it. It's another version of the MBTI, but it really dawned on me that there are so many combinations and permutations of personalities that it's really hard to just put certain letters or certain wings on personalities. Everything is so fluid with people, and having to keep an open mind about people's past, their short-term experiences or their long-term experiences dating back to when they were kids. It really opened my eyes on how pivotal experiences as a child or even adolescent would impact somebody 30, 40, 50 years later on. Why I read that was because I was going through certain business ventures and I couldn't understand certain personalities. And it was hard to actually connect with them because maybe it was just my tonality or the vocabulary I was using, but I had to find other ways to communicate. But this book, I would recommend. It's a short read. It's 150 pages, size 55 font, and it's a quick read. Pictures and all too. Actually, there are pictures. The Road Back to You. Yeah.
I remember reading and listening to podcasts. I just don't remember the names. I mean, our book's good. It's on mental health. But I do find a lot of inspiration from I hope I'm not pronouncing his name wrong. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk. So any book is written by him is very meditative. It reminds us to just kind of slow down and breathe, come back to the present. And then like for a lot of us who are so busy and every day kind of passes by, it's a really good. I feel like there's a lot of things that he says as he writes very simple things, but then it's very deep things.
Any question?
So my question has a lot to do with the concept and the theme of following non-traditional business practices, especially as immigrant families, like coming from immigrant families. So my question is like, what's one piece of traditional business advice you're not following in your business practice and why?
Traditions in business. Ugh.
I mean, just running a business was not something my parents wanted for me. They grew up a lot of like financial turmoils, and in Korea, just working at a big corporation was kind of like a dream job for people because it's considered stable, good pay. right? So I think they wanted me to just have a stable job, even government job that were considered to be stable, because they went through so much turbulence with their careers. So just starting a business, they were really against it in the beginning. Like they're worried because they seen people who started business and failed. So just actually having a business is not following my parents' expectations.
Perhaps this is coming from the need to survive as an immigrant. You're always like fighting tooth and nail for what's yours. And if it's not yours, it's somebody else's. I think that, especially being in LA in the food industry that's so welcoming and with such amazing people, I've never felt that to be true or a tradition that I want to continue. I think, especially in LA, there's so much room for collaboration and to share information, to not keep it to yourself. And I think that all of us will be better for it. Like the tide lifts all boats. Like you are not an isolated being, and we can have space for everybody. As long as it's something that's unique, something that's truly bringing value, there is.
Yeah, I think when you ask that's a really challenging question, by the way. That was great. On a personal side, my previous career, my previous life, I was a CPA. Well, I still am a CPA, but I went that route because my parents kind of swayed me that route. Actually, I just love numbers too, and I swim in numbers, so it makes sense to me. But I was practicing for about 9 years, and around the 9th year, 10th year, I made a judgment call on where I wanted to spend my next 10, 20, 30, whatever years. And it wasn't in the CPA practices. It wasn't in the professional services firm. I made that decision based on a gut feel. And why I did that was because I thought and looked into myself. It's not about the money. Money's always going to be there. It was more about what I could carry on as legacy from what my dad started and my mom started, selling one case of tofu, being late to their own wedding on their own wedding day because they're distributing tofu. But even though I was groomed to be more in the professional services world, I'm in a blue-collar manufacturing setting. And that would be non-traditional from today's standards of parents pushing their kids to be more doctors, lawyers, CPAs, whatnot. Another tradition that I'm not following from my parents is my staff. When I was a kid, a lot of my parents' staff were all Chinese. I chose not to do that. So my current staff is, yes, Chinese, but we have Vietnamese, we have Thai, we have Hispanics, we have folks who are from Venezuela, speaking both Cantonese and Spanish in one person. So it's a very mixed group of skills and demographics from when my parents were running the business. And it was hard to convince them of this because they were so traditional. They ran the business for 30, 40 something years. And I was like, we've got to assimilate better to the current state of our employees or our customers. We have Thai customers, we have Vietnamese customers, we have Chinese customers, we have all types. So we started looking deeper and starting right-sizing the fit for the shoe, or right-sizing the shoe for the fit. So, but yeah, those are some traditional non-conformances.
Thank you so much for the questions, and thank you so much for so much wisdom. I think that's all the time that we have for the panel itself. But they are going to stick around if you buy them a drink. So you can steal their time if you buy them a drink at the bar. All right, that's all we have for you today. But there is a raffle, so stick around for the raffle. And then also, again, as a reminder, the soy pudding in combination with Heidi's root affair, all of the different flavors going on are still available. And so please try them out. They're amazing. They're really good. But I also wanted to hear, if you all wanted to hear from Andrew, who has graciously allowed us to use the space for gathering today. I would love for you all to meet Andrew. Andrew, are you here? Andrew. 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 Yay, Andrew. Please give a round of applause for Andrew. Thank you so much. Andrew, would you just tell us a little bit about the restaurant too? Because just introduce yourself in the restaurant to us.
Yeah.
Hi. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. Peking Tavern's been around since 2013. We started in a different part of downtown LA, in a basement, and we moved over here in 2022. I think. 22. I think, yeah, it's been a while. But,
Did you used to have karaoke?
secret. It's secret.
I think I did.
Yeah. So this is the same Peking Tavern, but it's here now. We moved up a level. We're not in the basement anymore. So our idea back then, when my business partner and I started this idea, is to create a very unique way to experience Chinese food, especially with traditional dumplings and noodles. We had a lot of experience as designers back in Asia in the 90s, and we saw how vibrant the food scene was out there in places like Hong Kong, Shanghai, Taipei, Beijing, and then the Chinese people, when they get together to eat, it's really a good time, and it's there's they also drink. Unlike the Chinese food experience we've had here in the U.S. growing up, where it's usually opened by recent immigrants, and then they can only afford to open up a little mom and pop. They don't have the wherewithal or the help of getting a liquor license and jumping through all the hoops. And so therefore, as it turned out, throughout time, the Chinese dining experience here in the U.S. has been one of extreme value driven. People just want to, go eat, something strong taste and then leave, maybe get a tea or some soft drinks, right? So not that many people say, I have a birthday, let's go to a Chinese restaurant, right? Unless it's a very corporate, kind of like a Americanized version of it, right? So we wanted to change that. And we knew that to really kind of change it, we have to have a full bar where people can have a good time, get some drinks, and we also knew that to keep our food quality high and consistent, we need to limit the menu items to just a few. So that's why we broke out of the typical Chinese restaurant model of having this kind of encyclopedia of Mandarin, Sichuan, Shanghai, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, Taiwanese, We said, no, we're just going to focus on 2 main items. So that's the initial idea of Peking Tavern. Of course, we've evolved over the years. Now we do have some dim sum products, and we have a lot of great soybean products as well, thanks to AFC. Really good product, and we're very happy. And you can order some of it tonight for 15% off, along with some of our cocktails. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much.